This was 2 days, but it was unlike anything else that I had experienced to that point. And my mind just went right to, can I have an influence over where I live right now?
And here it is, I'm in this complicated cross in life where everything is turned upside down. What I was doing previously don't work. I'm overcome by my family being just shattered and broken, but I don't know nothing really different.
I had no idea what it was going to look like. So that was the fear, was of the unknown. Am I going to come in a different person? Am I going to come in who I am? Am I going to have to do things that I don't want to do?
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Pull Up Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to episode 2. In this episode, you're going to hear us talk about the Global Leadership Academy. The GLA is a 22-week program based on the content of the Global Leadership Summit. It's a program that was developed by incarcerated people to help change the culture of prison from the inside out. We are not professional podcasters, so please allow us some grace as we find a way to tell this awesome God-inspired story of a resident-driven leadership program that is changing prison culture. We're going to pull up on its founders. Stay tuned.
So we've talked a little bit about our hopes and aspirations for changing the culture, you know, in other prisons, inspiring those that are listening to do something like this, or at least utilize the principles we're going to speak on to empower them to change their current circumstance and the culture at their facility. So where do we start?
How about we start with 2019? The Global Leadership Summit is a 2-day event. It's typically the first week of August. Involves world-class leadership speakers, teachers, pastors, and that is the summit. The summit is put on by the Global Leadership Network. My bunkie had attended it in 2018, and he came back and was talking about all of the different speakers and authors that he heard talk, and that it was a live streaming event. And at the time, I was a year into my sentence and could not fathom attending a streaming event inside of the prison I was at. So at the time, I was really just pressing my bunk and you know, making the time go by.
So back up to the actual summit event.
Yeah.
How important was the summit event to you?
Well, I guess I really didn't know what to expect. So when we arrived for the summit in the chapel, there were tables set up, and there were table settings at the table. There were name tags, and I remember filling out that name tag and not being sure what to put. Do I put my last name and my number?
Right.
You know, why a name tag? I have an ID. My ID says offender in red, and it says my full state name and my number. So why would I have a name tag? Well, that was just the first thing. When I walked in, I sat down at the table. There were hot drinks. There were breakfast pastries, breakfast food. There were people from the community that came in to be a part of it. Those people addressed me by my name that they saw on my name tag. And there was something about that in that moment. Just being called Bo was profound for me. I had gotten used to being called a number, being called offender. Offender Cornelius, go to medical. Cornelius 291-439, you have a visit. Like, those are the ways that we were addressed. And sitting next to someone sharing a meal was the start to something that was amazing to me. It was really a pivotal moment for me. So as the summit started, the speakers of the summit, I felt like were speaking directly to my situation. I'm 2 years into a sentence. I know I have 4 years left. I have a family at home. I'm trying to find a way back to my community. I'm trying to find a way back to being worthy of being part of my community and part of my family. Previously, I was a business owner. My identity was in construction. It was in making money, providing. Prison made me lose all that. So how do I find dignity, and how do I maintain, or how do I establish an identity that's positive, that's good? I felt like I was getting a lot of those answers right in that moment when I was hearing Again, where everything is risk management and everything is don't stand here, don't go there, don't do this, don't do that. If you do this, that will happen. If you do that, this will happen. Then I walk into this room and everything is forward facing. Everything is visionary. Everything is about making change, changing structures around you. Like that's what I was hearing. Like leadership at its core is influence. I kind of understood leadership as business management, I think at that time, like through the lens of prison, we're all dressed the same, we're fed the same. And so in that moment, when I'm hearing people talk about dealing with chaos and seeing opportunity, what better place to turn chaos into opportunity than a prison? And so in that moment, I knew this was 2 days, but it was unlike anything else that I had experienced to that point. And my mind just went right to, can I have an influence over where I live right now?
So how did you feel leaving the summit, going back to the normal routine, back to your cell?
Everybody that leaves the summit in prison, they get back to their housing unit and you just kind of sit down and you're almost seeing stars, because it's like you're taking a drink from the water hose, but you're wondering, like, I heard all of this great stuff. What can I use? For me, it was, what can I do right now?
Right.
I was not like, man, that was great. I can't wait to tell my wife about it and then use it when I get home in 5 years. One that stuck out to me was Chris Voss talked about tactical empathy, and he talked about asking good questions as a method of negotiating. I went back to the housing unit, and that day I used that with the CO in the house, where felt like I was being given an aggressive interaction. And I just simply asked the question, are you giving me a directive? Am I not doing something that you would like me to do? And what I saw was an immediate kind of de-escalation and going on to the next thing. Like it could have escalated, but in that moment, me just asking that question, like that was applying a simple leadership opportunity. Like, and so my brain just got working, like, what else can we do? And I had the idea of, could this become a council? Could this become more than a class, if you will? Is there a way that we could apply leadership to bettering the facility while using it in a process that helps us become better individuals?
When did that happen? Explain the journey of, processing all the information you got and the reflection. Because it's not like you just go back from the summit and sit in your cell and say, I'm going to create GLA. So then what? How did that go?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think I've always been a dreamer. But I think, again, like when you apply leadership, what I realize now in reflecting was I'm really visionary. That needs guardrails. But right away, I had this idea for, in the facility, we had an inmate council. And what the inmate council does is it's a group of people from each housing unit, one person from each housing unit. Some might have two. They meet, they address issues within the institution. Most people in prison are going to understand what an inmate council was. Well, I had a vision for using leadership principles to make the inmate council more effective, because I always felt like the inmate council, again, was the transaction of information. You would go get a worksheet. It would be an answer to why a bunch of questions were no, and there really wasn't much discussion or challenge to anything. There wasn't an ability to constructively say, wait a minute, can we talk about this?
There wasn't collaboration.
And revisit it. Right. It wasn't collaborative at all.
It was transaction.
It was worksheet based for sure. So my idea was maybe we could get to a place where a more effective inmate council could exist, where the idea is that the people in the inmate council go back to the housing unit and disseminate the information that they got from the wardens or whoever the leadership was and address those concerns. My thought is, why couldn't this be more about leadership, more about changing the culture of the facility, about changing the dynamic between resident and staff? Because at the end of the day, I came to prison at 40 years old. I got a wife and a daughter at home. I'm trying to get back to my community. And at the end of the day, I want to be treated as good as I possibly can. I want to have as little conflict as I can. I want to stay out of the way, as we say in prison, because I want to be able to communicate with my wife and daughter. I don't want to lose phone calls, visits, So this is, how do I put this into a positive thing? And out of that came the idea for the Global Leadership Academy. But again, it was like a 35,000 foot idea.
Sure.
Absolutely no.
So you knew quickly after the summit and your experience that you wanted to use that to change your surroundings and the culture inside the facility and your interactions that you have on a day-to-day basis. But how and when did it start to funnel towards Global Leadership Academy?
At the time, I had started to read some personal development books, and I was kind of searching for something. And I knew all along the way that the structure of programming, like I call it the workbook worksheet structure, where it's real transactional. Like I know that you have to apply these things. You have to put them into a process. You have to practice them. This cannot just be passively answering a question and then moving on. So I knew that if I didn't apply it and use it, it would be useless, or I would lose it. Like the understanding would go away, that motivation, that inspiration that I had in that moment, really that hope that, hey, can I leave this place better than I found it? Can I have influence here? And I believe it was January of 2020, I brought up the idea and having something like the summit structure that's done weekly. So in the summit, you have all of these very inspiring, positive talks, but there's like 16 of them in 2 days. And any one of them can be broke down and applied to our own perspectives and situation. And so my thought was, break this all the way down and take the time to figure out how we can use these leadership principles to the betterment of what we're doing now.
And really dissect each talk, each presentation.
Yeah, and through the perspective of how do I use this right now?
Of applicability to your situation right now.
Right.
Or your reentry.
Right. Yeah. So when somebody's telling you, Craig Rochelle does a talk on pain, uncertainty, and chaos, that actually followed the summit. And so when you think of that applicably in a prison,
it resonates immediately.
Yeah. But also it magnifies. And so my thought is immediately, how does this apply to prison? And it's not a long reach.
So where'd the structure get?
Right.
More?
So after COVID, so COVID shut everything down. No summit in 2020. We had the summit again in 2021. And after 2021, then I had gotten through COVID. I was then 4 years into my 7-year sentence. I knew my out date again. So I'm 4 years into my sentence. I'm a little more comfortable in my surroundings. I have a little bit more of a reputation within the facility with staff. Go to the 2021 summit. It's the same. It's all different speakers, different topics, different leadership principles, but the same thing. We have the tables with the meals, with the name tags, with volunteers coming in, the atmosphere of humanity in the room, the feeling of hope, and the ability to have influence in that space was magnified coming out of COVID, because during COVID, everything was completely shut down. So
the fire got lit again.
Right. And in a bigger way,
Yep.
because COVID was so restrictive, and it was like, okay, I'm further along down my sentence, coming out of this pretty dramatic thing. And it's like, okay, this time I'm doing something. So we had the 2021 summit, and we did the follow-up in November, where the 39 people who were still at the facility that attended the summit came in for the follow-up. And that's when I approached the chaplain with the idea again, hey, we need more of this. And, how do we do this on a weekly basis and turn this into more? And what would that look like? And he said, well, we would have to, propose that to admin. Admin would have to take a look at it and approve it. And it was kind of a little bit of what I perceived as a runaround. But what I immediately did was offered to write a proposal. And the chaplain said, if you write a proposal, I'll take it to admin. What he did know is that my wife has a master's in instructional design. And so we sat in the visiting room and wrote a very professional, succinct proposal about what this thing would look like. And through those 2 4-hour visiting sessions, I actually thought through some of the things, and I put forward the proposal. It was approved, and it was time to. So that was November of 2021.
So when did you? Because that you still need resources at this point in time. You can dream about structure, weekly structure, or whatever, but at the same time, were you corresponding with the Global Leadership Network? Not yet.
Not yet.
So you didn't even have
nothing.
You didn't have a way to view individual presentations.
Well, we had I believe there were we had 2015 and 2018
the DVD
sets, and so we had like 30 talks, and I watched those relentlessly. I watched every one of those talks probably 5-6 times to break them down, but still, all I knew at the time was take the talk and add perspective and reflect on it. I had no facilitating experience. I had very little programming experience. You know, when the proposal was accepted, we set a date. January 5th of 2022 was going to be the first Global Leadership Academy session, which is what now is the 22-week program that meets weekly, where we do take one talk and we watch it in group. We take that one talk, we apply a leadership principle or two to it so that we keep a narrow perspective. We reflect on the talk and we talk about how that applies to our current situation. In reflecting back, it wasn't easy. We make the joke that the plane was kind of falling apart in the air right after we took off, and we're trying to find ways to put it back together.
We're trying to catch pieces while they're blowing off.
Right. And what I tell guys is the only difference between me and what a lot of other guys were able to achieve is that when it was going bad, we just didn't quit. Each day we put one foot in front of the other. We took the no's with a grain of salt, and the obstacles and the conflict. Sometimes we quit on Thursday night, and Friday morning we were trying to find a way to recommit.
And that's still the case today.
It is. So when you have this grand vision of how could I change this place, how could I have positive influence over this place, immediately you have to ask yourself, who's my team, who's my people, who else could help me with this? And that's where for me, it was going and finding the people who had done a lot of time, who had done a lot of programming, educating, but had a lot of wisdom within the prison system of how the system worked. Like the staff end of it and the need there wasn't really on my radar. First, it was, how do I coalesce a team of people around this? Because again, if the thought is a functional inmate council, if you will, I need influential people who are already influential on the Hill. I'm not going to look for the guy that just got off of the Grey Goose and is
people that are articulate and wise and have understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, those are the people we're going to be talking with next.
Right. Exactly. So you've heard us talking about the Global Leadership Summit. The Global Leadership Summit is a live stream event that is attended by churches, businesses, and leadership organizations from all across the world. It's August 7th and 8th, live from Willow Creek Community Church in Chicago. This is free to all prisons and jails in the U.S. All you have to do is have your chaplain or activity coordinator reach out to me, Bo Cornelius, at Our Daily Bread Ministries, or the Global Leadership Network directly, and they will help your facility get set up to live stream the event. Now, let's get back to it. Being a leadership podcast, we want to deal with leadership principles, and we kind of want to talk about how we applied these things. The language and the words that we use are important. And so, what sticks out to me, and I think for me, the starting place of the GLA story, of the prison story, is fear. I think there's a common theme. Anybody who tells you that they come to prison, particularly the first time, and they're not scared is either really stupid or lying. LA, what was that like for you, being so young, and particularly what was, how did you experience prison the first time, and how did you deal with that failure in the moment?
Well, it started initially from, I was on house arrest for this, just the preparation and the build up, and I just didn't know what even prison looked like, what it was. There's no prison manual. There's no guide or book that tells you this is how you get through prison unscathed. Like, there's none of that. I wish there was. I might have to invest, but I had no idea what it was going to look like. So that was the fear, was of the unknown. What does it look like? Am I going to come in a different person? Am I going to come in who I am? Am I going to have to do things that I don't want to do? Which is, am I going to have to hurt somebody to make an example? Or am I going to get hurt? Because I'm 18 years old, $150 soaking wet. I'm prime target. I don't know what this is going to look like.
How you say that with your chest?
Yeah, it was hard.
$150 soaking wet.
$150 soaking wet. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of chest to say it with at that time.
Well,
so,
but you knew it. So like,
yes,
it kind of goes back to like how you deal with the fear was in the moment.
Yeah.
Was you put your head on a swivel,
yeah,
and you tied yourself to the people who you thought could not only benefit you but keep you safe, right?
Yes. And I made connections quick. As soon as I got into diagnostics, I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know that there's politics behind phones. I didn't know that I have to go to somebody in order to get on the phone because he runs this. He runs this phone. What does that mean? What do you mean you run a phone?
Right.
Like, isn't this for everybody? Like, are we just supposed to like, hey, I got next? Like, no. So I'm trying to navigate all of these different things and try to figure out where I'm about to sit at the chow hall table. I'm trying to understand my environment. I just came from home and now I'm in this mysterious place. So I'm trying to find people to connect with that can explain this to me and let me know, like, hey man, I got you, without feeling like this person's out to get me or this person is just talking a good game, but he's really buddy hustling me, because that's a common thing. And it was a weird journey in the beginning, man, to try to figure out who's real and who's authentic.
So almost out of a need for self-preservation, like in that moment, you exhibited humility, you exhibited creativity, you were exhibiting, you out of a need to self-preserve, out of a fear of literally getting hurt, you humbled yourself enough to find the people who could protect you, essentially, at 18.
Absolutely. Pride would have got me killed. That's ultimately how it could win. Pride could have definitely got me killed, could have hurt me, could have put me in the hole, and there goes all communication with my family. At that current moment, I'm not getting on the phone. So if I'm humble enough to know that I cannot do this by myself, I don't know what this looks like, so I need to get in contact with the right people. I need to find a different way to navigate this, because I can't do this because I'm blind to my surroundings. So I just finally, I reached out to guys and I just simply asked a simple question. Hey man, how does the phone line work? Like, who do I need to talk to? How does this go? And you'll get guys who are willing to give you a rundown, and you see, and most of the time guys are they'll be quick to navigate to, they'll help you through things, because they see
they see the humble approach.
Yeah, if you're humble, because if you come off like, man, I'm trying to get on this phone. I'm about to get on this phone. Yeah, that's not going to work out.
And we see how that goes, because a lot of people do use that approach.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the background too, in that moment, like I'm watching, I'm seeing you as a humble young man.
Right.
At the time, I'm not like, this is a scared 18-year-old that's acting meek because he's scared. Right. I'm watching you from afar, and I'm understanding that there's a humble guy who's appreciating my business with him, and sees me as potentially somebody who could be a benefit to him. And so he approaches that with gratitude and humility, which in prison is at short order. So appreciate that perspective. I'd shift that to you, because how did you experience prison initially, and what role did fear play in it?
That's a great question. And I can only give you a complicated response. Man, So typically, the way I dealt with fear on the streets was to face it head on. It wasn't no running from it. It didn't matter, how big or bad it was. I'm gonna match that energy. And it's crazy because when we talk about fear, and I remember that day that I got sentenced, where the judge gave me 25 years concurrent. A lot of my family and friends didn't know nothing about the system. So what they heard was 225s. And in that moment, when I heard the hollering and the wailing, just to break it down, I felt that weight in that moment that I had never really paid no attention to because of living life and moving and just doing all these different type of things and whatnot. But I felt the weight of that moment where when I got sentenced, it literally felt like I had died. And you wouldn't have been able to tell my family nothing different. And so having to go through that and feel that visceral pain from them in real time, all the reactions, the kids, my aunts, my father, my mother, my wife and sisters and brothers and all of this is going on. I'm like, I just tore my family apart. And so it was that fear there where I felt like I had literally tore my family apart. And it was like, I have to do something. Because no matter how I lived in the streets, nobody is gonna argue with you or tell you that I wasn't a protector and a provider for my family. And so that fear still had me in a position of where, like I said, I'm finna face it head on. I gotta save my family. That was too much. And here it is, I'm in this complicated cross in life where everything is turned upside down. What I was doing previously don't work. I'm overcome by my family being just shattered and broken, but I don't know nothing really different. I don't know a lot more of what I can do better or different because what I know comes from back here and it don't work. What do I do at this crosswalk right here? So the fear is there.
No.
And I'm like, man. And then I'm down here in the jungle. For cats that know about the Justice Center, we call it the Justo, down there in St. Louis City. It's like a level 10. Some say a level 50 or 20 or whatever you want to call it, but you getting down every single day. And having to come from that jungle, that part, the only thing that I was able to go back to, which is another story for a different time, but during that time in the jungle, I actually managed to get my GED.
Was that out of desire or like the only thing to do? Like what was it that made you jump into that early on?
To keep it real, I thought I was gonna prevail on my cases. I thought that I was gonna beat everything. Going to trial so much and constantly getting, having mistrials, the way that everything was turning out was like, okay. And then my lawyers, they like, okay, yeah, we're gonna win on this stuff. So I'm thinking that I'm gonna go back to the streets. And I only had a plan was to just get a job, but I was gonna sell weed on the side. Those were my plans and goals for trying to go back to the streets at that time. And again, this is my second time back. So the first time when I was out, I failed miserably trying to get a job. And so, and this is where leadership really come into play when you don't have it and when you don't use it or when you don't know nothing about it. So when I got out the first time and I went to try to go apply for a job, I hadn't even prepared myself good enough to realize how society had changed. And so when I went to apply for the job, I'm expecting like a paper application. That had changed. It wasn't no more paper application. So the lady sent me down and said, go into the booth. And so when I went in, I saw a computer in there. And when I tapped on the mouse, the application popped up. Well, I had educated myself enough or didn't even prepare enough for this change in society. So I was spooked. Now, as thorough as we claim to be, and especially as I claim to be at that particular juncture in my life, as solid, as smart, all these different things that I thought that I was.
Couldn't fill out a job application.
I couldn't fill out a job application. I was immediately overwhelmed. I was afraid. I hurried up and walked out of there, didn't make eye contact with the lady. She looking at me because I came out too quick. And it's like, I didn't ask the simple question, what do I do?
Yeah.
Or, ma'am, I've been incarcerated and, when I was last out, it was paper applications. I don't know anything about like filling them out on the computer. Like, what do I do? Didn't do none of that. And so I had remembered that time. So here it is, fast forward, now I'm down in the Justice Center. I'm thinking I'm going home. I'm like, okay, well, let me get my GED so I don't have to keep putting the last grade of completion was the 11th on the application. I'm like, let me go ahead and get this GED. Hopefully that'll get me through some different doors or whatever. But I'm gonna sell this weed on the side. And for our viewers, let me say this. When you're coming up with a silly strategy like that, that's called trying to do the wrong thing in a better way. And so that's what my mind frame was, but none of that even worked out. I ended up losing out, getting the time that I had received. Now I'm in these crosshairs of fear and my family shattered and all these different type of things going on. And so at that particular point, man, I'm like, okay, the only silver lining was my GED. Now I'm off to prison. And I'm just thinking like, how am I gonna save my family? This is gonna depend on me. The same way I just broke them. What am I gonna do? Whatever I'm gonna do, it has to be right. Whatever I'm gonna do, it has to be positive. It has to be headed in a better direction. I have to show them. How do I turn these things around? So when I got to prison, that's what I was in search of. I was in search of, okay, how it's time to network. I need to figure out now, I'm back in prison. What has changed? What do they offer? What's going on? And so from there, that's when I just started trying out anything that was positive.
So I think we often believe that our experiences are unique. And, what I'm hearing just sitting here that I really didn't think about at any previous point is that we all came into our situations with people on the outside that we disappointed and cared about us.
Absolutely.
And we came to prison in a cloak of shame.
Mm-hmm.
So guilt and shame. Guilt is you did something bad. Shame is you are bad.
Yeah.
But shame is super dangerous. It's hopeless. But whether you're 18, 40, 20 something, second time, first time, whatever that is, I had the people I cared about most are the people I did the most damage to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you don't realize that until it's too late to fix it, because I was facing 85% of a 7, not 85% of 25. And so, but I had that because you described your pre-existing identity, and while yours might have been in the street, mine was in construction and in business and making money, but it was also in shunning societal norms. I don't have to listen to anybody. I brought a lot of my past with me, mm-hmm. and I thought, as long as I'm taking care of me and mine, I'm okay, and everything is okay. But, I find myself going to prison as a result of a car crash where I'm on my way home from work, where I'm earning money, my world is completely flipped upside down. The next morning I find out, hey, you could be going to prison for years. And I have a 5-year-old daughter and a wife I've been married to for 8 years who rely on me for their emotional well-being, their physical well-being, their financial well-being. And now I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. And I'm not only leaving, I'm leaving them with no answers, with no help. And where does that leave me?
Yeah.
And my wife, people on the outside that, again, aunts, uncles, moms, dads, they all thought that I could go to prison and be rehabilitated. Mm-hmm. Like they thought that, you know, I came to prison a raging alcoholic. I needed help. My life was completely out of balance. I think the community thinks that you can go to prison and find those things. Prison, if you're willing, you can go to prison and you can learn balance. You can learn what's next. You can shed shame. You can live in self-worth. Those things for me happened in spite of the place, and they happened because of the people that I surrounded myself with who had that common goal of getting back to something or getting to something with dignity, with self-worth. And so that's how we ended up at a starting place where we didn't know how, we knew what. We had a vision of what it could be, but we had a strong why, you know, and we had that kind of common thread. So I think, you know, what you're going to hear from me and from us along the way is we are very socially, culturally, very different people. We come from diverse and very different backgrounds, but the fix of leadership, the fix of, for me, of establishing healthy relationships, even understanding what a healthy relationship was. And people hear me say leadership in prison is life or death. Yeah. That's why. Yeah. Because the hopelessness will take you to the point of you would rather be dead than facing what you have to face. Mm-hmm. And you have to find a way back with hope and with dignity, with love. And so, you know, for me, reestablishing my faith in God was part of establishing healthy relationships with my family, with my community, within the prison, understanding how I misunderstood these things: health, physical health, mental health, spiritual health, relational health. All of those things are real, but who considers those in real time? We are here because we know that you have influence where you are, influence over your situation, no matter how dire or hopeless it may seem. I know from my experience that you can use your influence no matter where you are to the good of yourself and to the good of others. You can use your influence for personal development. You can use your influence for spiritual development. You can use your influence for community development, even within your housing unit, the neighbors that you might have, the programs that you might be involved in, working out on the yard, whatever that may be. You always have influence. But do we often, particularly in prison, don't consider that, or we just join the negative influence, which to me became my negative existence. And so leadership helped me get away from that. And my hope is that you guys, wherever you are right now, will understand that you can do that. And we're going to kind of show you how we did it. You can engage with your activity coordinator. You can engage with your chaplain around leadership and apply some of these principles that we're going to talk about. At a grassroots level, that leadership can change the culture of a prison. I've seen it happen, and I believe that it has the potential to change prison system as a whole.
So on that, getting into the next episodes, the journey we're going to be taking you all on, I think, I think Bo feels the same way. Just stick with us. We'll try to articulate in the best way possible the struggles, and also the benefit that we've seen over the past couple of years, really investing ourselves into this journey.
Well, and this is, for me, it's a job and a mission for me personally. This is what I do with my life now. So I'm taking this program into other prisons and seeing it be successful. And that's That's my motive. And so we're just getting started. We're gonna be talking about a lot of leadership principles. We're gonna be talking a lot about mindset. We're gonna talk about what we value and what makes a good leader. We're gonna talk about fear. We're gonna talk about failure. We're gonna talk about collaboration, creativity. We're gonna talk about communication, dealing with conflict. All of these things are relevant to what we're doing, and they all apply. You can know that just by the fact that I'm here, sitting in street clothes in the prison that I was released from less than 2 years ago as director of prison ministry for a global ministry, and resourcing and equipping guys inside. That is my mission. It's my passion, and I know leadership is the method and the way that we're going to do that. Stay tuned.
Yeah, stick with us.
And that about wraps it up for this week. So thanks again for joining us. This week's episode was brought to you by Our Daily Bread Ministries, helping you experience the life-changing wisdom of the Bible every day. And don't forget about it. We're serious. If you know someone who's a good example of what leadership and positive influence looks like inside of prison, let us know, and we might pull up on you. You can contact us through Our Daily Bread Ministries or reach out to me directly, and we will connect with your facility and see if we can set up a visit. Until then, I want to thank this week's guests, and finally, a special thanks to those who work behind the scenes to make this podcast possible. Missouri Department of Corrections, Jefferson City Correctional Center, Warden Kelly Morris, the guys at Jefftown, and my friends at Golden Eagle Creative who produce it all. We'll see you right here at the same time in 2 weeks.